What if I told you that Americans are returning brand new trucks at a rate this industry has never seen before? We're not talking about a few unhappy customers. We're talking about a systemic collapse of trust between the biggest truck manufacturers on the planet and the working men and women who spent $50, $60, sometimes $80,000 on a vehicle that was supposed to last them a decade. Something has gone catastrophically wrong in the truck world, and the manufacturers don't want you to know about it. The return rate. Nobody's talking about. Let's start with the number that should be plastered across every automotive news outlet in America, but somehow isn't. Truck return rates and owner-initiated buyback requests have climbed to levels that industry analysts are quietly describing as unprecedented. Consumer satisfaction scores for full-size and mid-size trucks dropped sharply between 2023 and 2026, and the complaints driving those numbers aren't about cup holders or seat stitching. They're about trucks that won't shift properly, trucks that throw warning lights before the first oil change, trucks with engines that knock, stall, surge, and in some documented cases, catastrophically fail before hitting 60,000 miles. Let that sink in. 60,000 miles. That's nothing. My grandfather's 1982 Toyota pickup hit 200,000 miles, and the only thing that ever broke was my grandfather's back from loading it too heavy. These new trucks aren't even getting out of adolescence before they're falling apart. Now, to be clear, a traditional return in the automotive world isn't as simple as walking back into Target with a receipt. Most states have lemon laws that govern the process, and buybacks typically happen after repeated failed repair attempts. But what we're seeing in 2026 is a dramatic spike in lemon law filings, Better Business Bureau complaints, and manufacturer-initiated buybacks across multiple brands simultaneously. That's not a coincidence. That's a pattern. The brands showing up most frequently in these complaints are names names you trust. Names that built their reputations over decades of producing trucks that worked. Ford, Ram, General Motors. And in a plot twist that genuinely shocked the automotive community, Toyota. The brands that once competed on durability are now competing on who can disappoint their customers the least. And here's what makes this story so infuriating. These aren't budget economy trucks. These aren't stripped-down base models bought by buyers who cut corners. The trucks getting returned are loaded configurations. Fully optioned work trucks and luxury variants with price tags that would have seemed insane 10 years ago. Buyers who stretched their budgets, secured their financing, and drove off the lot feeling proud are now sitting in dealership service bays wondering what went wrong. What went wrong is a long story. But we're going to tell every word of it. The complexity trap. When trucks got too smart for their own good. Here's a question nobody at any truck manufacturer seems willing to answer honestly. At what point did a pickup truck stop being a tool and start being a problem? Because somewhere between 1995 and today, the American pickup truck transformed from a mechanical workhorse that any competent mechanic could diagnose in a driveway into a rolling data center with 4 wheels and a tow hitch. And the people paying the price for that transformation aren't the engineers who designed these systems or the executives who signed off on them. It's the contractors, the farmers, the families, the weekend towers who bought into the promise of a modern truck and got something far more complicated than they bargained for. Let's talk about what actually lives inside a 2025 full-size truck. Modern trucks contain upward of 150 separate electronic control modules. 150. There's a module for the transmission, a module for the brakes, a module for the suspension, and yes, a module specifically for the tailgate. The tailgate has its own computer now. I genuinely don't know who greenlit that decision, but I have questions. Many questions. Each one of those modules is a potential failure point. Each one talks to the others through a complex internal network, and when one starts sending bad data, it triggers a cascade of warning lights, error codes, and system shutdowns that can make a perfectly functional truck completely undrivable. Not because the engine failed, not because the transmission is worn out, because a $40 sensor had a bad Tuesday. This is the complexity trap. Manufacturers didn't add all this technology because truck buyers demanded it. They added it because technology sells. Because a massive floating touchscreen looks incredible in a commercial. Because adaptive cruise control and automatic emergency braking win comparison tests in magazines. Nobody at any publication has ever written a breathless review about how beautifully a wiring harness held up at 180,000 miles. But everyone notices the 12-inch infotainment screen on the spec sheet. Complexity is the enemy of reliability. That's not a controversial opinion. That's basic engineering. The Ford 300 inline-six had one camshaft, 7 main bearings, and absolutely zero interest in your lane position. It just ran. Decade after decade, it ran. Today's trucks run too, until they don't. And when they stop, good luck figuring out which of the 150 modules staged the revolt. The Hurricane engine gamble. Let's talk about what Ram did and why owners are still losing sleep over it. For years, Ram's entire identity was anchored to the Hemi 5.8. That 5.7-liter engine was loud, thirsty, and gloriously old school, and buyers loved every single thing about it. It wasn't the most fuel-efficient option in the segment. It wasn't winning any awards for technological sophistication. But it was proven across hundreds of thousands of real-world miles. It was reliable in ways that actually mattered, and it was the kind of engine that any mechanic anywhere in the country could understand without a software license. People chose Ram trucks specifically because of the Hemi. That's not a romanticized version of history. That's documented consumer purchasing behavior. Then Ram killed it. Just gone. Thanks for the memories. In its place came the Hurricane, a brand new twin-turbocharged inline-six introduced with the kind of marketing language that would make a politician uncomfortable. More power, better efficiency, the future of Ram performance. What the press releases didn't mention is something every experienced automotive observer understands instinctively about first-year engine designs. You are the beta test. The buyer is the quality control department. And Ram was charging $50,000 for that privilege. Here's what the real-world data on the Hurricane actually looks like so far. Turbocharger longevity beyond 100,000 miles is completely unknown because these engines simply haven't existed long enough to generate that data. Cooling system behavior under sustained heavy towing has already triggered dealer service bulletins in certain configurations. Owners in hot climates are reporting thermal management issues that never appeared with the Hemi. And the software governing the twin-turbo system is complex enough that experienced Ram technicians are spending hours diagnosing problems that have no business existing on a vehicle with 15,000 miles on the clock. The Hurricane might be making impressive numbers on a dyno, but legendary engines don't earn their reputations on a dyno. They earn them at 200,000 miles. At 300,000 miles, the Cummins 6.7-liter built its legacy through years of documented, brutal, real-world punishment. The Hurricane hasn't earned anything yet except marketing trophies and a lot of owners who check their oil pressure gauge with an anxiety that no new truck should ever generate. The Hemi wasn't perfect, but it was known. And in the truck world, known beats unknown every single time. Ford's power boost problem won't go away. Ford would very much like you to stop talking about the power boost hybrid system's reliability problems. Unfortunately for Ford, the data has other ideas. The F-150 Power Boost hybrid has now earned the worst predicted reliability rating of any truck in its segment for 3 consecutive years. 3 consecutive years. That's not a blip. That's not a rough launch followed by a correction. That's a fundamental, persistent systemic failure to engineer a hybrid system that works reliably in the most demanding truck use cases. And Ford keeps selling these trucks, and buyers keep buying them, and then the trucks keep breaking. Here's the core problem with the Power Boost, and it's a problem that was predictable from the moment Ford announced the configuration. The F-150's 10-speed automatic transmission already had a documented history of complaints before the hybrid version ever existed. Rough shifting, delayed engagement, premature wear. These were known issues that Ford had been managing with varying degrees of success in the standard configuration. Then Ford took that transmission, connected it to an electric motor, integrated a high-voltage battery pack, layered complex power management software over the entire system, and called it an innovation. What it actually is is a reliability disaster multiplied. Every weakness in the transmission got amplified. Every new hybrid component added new failure points. And when any single part of that deeply integrated system fails, the entire powertrain can become inoperable. Not just inconvenient, inoperable. You don't get a truck that shifts a little rough, you get a truck that doesn't move. One owner documented that their 2021 Power Boost spent 10% of its operational life sitting in a dealership service bay over a 30-month period. Do the math on that. Over 2.5 years, this truck was broken and unavailable for more than 3 months total. During that window, the owner went through a new transmission and extensive repairs to the EGR system. All of this theoretically covered under warranty. Theoretically, because the actual experience of getting warranty work done efficiently at an overwhelmed Ford dealership is a whole separate nightmare we'll get to shortly. The cruelest part of the Power Boost situation is the buyer profile. People who chose the hybrid configuration weren't buying it for environmental reasons. This is a truck buyer. They were buying it for the onboard generator capability and the fuel economy improvement on the highway. They wanted practical utility. Instead, they got a truck that spent more time generating repair orders than generating electricity. 3 years of worst in segment reliability ratings. If Ford were a student, they'd have failed the class 3 times by now. Most schools make you repeat the grade after the second time. The Toyota shock. When the gold standard cracked. I want to take a moment to acknowledge something before we get into this chapter. Saying anything negative about Toyota truck reliability feels wrong in a deep cellular level kind of way. It's like telling someone their golden retriever bit a child. You want to deny it. You want there to be an explanation. You want it to not be true, but the data is the data. The 2025 Toyota Tacoma was ranked dead last in the midsize truck segment for predicted reliability by Consumer Reports, dead last for a Toyota for the Tacoma. The truck that for decades was the answer to every question about dependability. The truck that made everyone else look bad at their own game. What happened? The 2025 Tacoma is a completely redesigned vehicle built on an all-new platform with a new turbocharged I-Force powertrain and an 8-speed automatic transmission. And here's where we circle back to a theme you should be starting to recognize. It's a first-generation platform, brand new, unproven, and Toyota, which historically takes the most conservative approach to launching new powertrains of any major manufacturer, somehow delivered a Tacoma with transmission problems significant enough to generate technical service bulletins on early production 2024 models. Owners are reporting rough shifting that doesn't go away after dealer visits, hesitation during acceleration that makes the truck feel uncertain and disconnected, and an electrical system that seems to have developed opinions of its own, generating multiple warning lights simultaneously for systems that should have nothing to do with each other. Drive start control malfunction, brake system malfunction, infotainment crashes. These are not the words people associate with a Tacoma, until now. The tragedy here is specifically about the premium buyers paid. A Tacoma costs more than a Colorado. It costs more than a Ranger. It costs more because for years, that premium was absolutely justified by the gap in long-term reliability. You paid more up front and spent less over the life of the vehicle. That was the deal. That deal has been broken with the 2025 model, and buyers who paid the Toyota premium are now getting the reliability of the competition they were trying to avoid. Toyota will almost certainly sort this out. Their engineering culture and their long-term commitment to quality make that likely. But the people who bought in the first year aren't interested in what Toyota might do next year. They're interested in why their brand new Tacoma is behaving like a first draft. GM's ticking time bomb, the 6.2-liter recall. Nearly 600,000 trucks. Let that number live in your head for a second. Nearly 600,000 Chevrolet Silverados and GMC Sierras from 2021 through 2024 are affected by NHTSA recall 25V 274000. And the reason for the recall isn't a software glitch. It isn't a faulty sensor. It isn't a bad infotainment module. It's the engine itself. Specifically, manufacturing flaws in the connecting rod and crankshaft components of the 6.2-liter Ecotec 3 V8. These are not peripheral components. These are the fundamental rotating assembly that makes an engine an engine. When these components fail, you don't get a warning light and a trip to the dealer. You get a catastrophic noise, a sudden loss of oil pressure, and an engine that has just destroyed itself from the inside. The technical term is a spun bearing or a thrown rod. The practical term is your truck is now a very expensive parking cone. Now here's where this story goes from bad to genuinely insulting. GM's official recall remedy for trucks that pass an initial inspection is as follows. Switch to a higher viscosity oil. Install a new oil fill cap. Update the owner's manual. I'll give you a moment with that. GM engineers identified a structural defect in the rotating assembly of 600,000 engines, a defect that causes catastrophic internal failure, and their fix is to change the oil weight and hand you a new owner's manual. That is the automotive equivalent of telling someone their house foundation is cracking and recommending they buy nicer curtains. It doesn't address the problem. It manages it slightly. And it leaves every owner of a 6.2-liter Sierra or Silverado wondering exactly when their engine is going to decide it's had enough. These engines were already known for two problems before this recall even happened. Lifter failures with the distinctive ticking and knocking that sounds like someone dropped loose change into your engine bay. And excessive oil consumption tied to the active fuel management system, which was supposed to save fuel by deactivating cylinders, but instead created uneven wear patterns that no cylinder deactivation system should create. Buyers were paying a premium for the 6.2-liter specifically because they wanted the best GM had to offer. They got an engine under investigation for structural defects. The 10-speed automatic that ships with these trucks has its own separate history of rough shifting and delayed engagement complaints. So you've got a premium powertrain failing from two directions at once, and a manufacturer whose official response is to ask you to trust a different grade of motor oil. The dealer experience is making it worse. Here's a truth that every truck owner who's ever sat in a dealership service waiting room already knows. The truck breaking down is only half the problem. The other half is what happens after you bring it in. Service department wait times at major truck dealerships in 2026 have reached levels that are genuinely hard to believe. Appointments booked weeks in advance. Trucks sitting on service lots for days before a technician even looks at them. Repair estimates that keep expanding as technicians discover the rabbit hole goes deeper than anyone initially thought. And loaner vehicles? Good luck. Most dealers simply don't have them. You drop off your $50,000 truck with a transmission problem, and you figure out your own transportation for the 2 weeks it takes to get to the bottom of it. The technician shortage is real, and it's severe. The complexity of modern trucks has outpaced the training infrastructure that was supposed to keep up with it. You've got vehicles with 150 electronic modules and dealers with technicians who are genuinely skilled with wrenches but are learning software diagnostics on the job. The scan tools that are supposed to identify problems don't always speak the same language as the modules causing them. The result is diagnosis by elimination. Try this. Didn't work. Try that. Still broken. Come back next Tuesday. We ordered a part for owners experiencing lemon law qualifying repairs, meaning multiple failed attempts to fix the same problem. This service department chaos is a documented nightmare. Getting a dealer to acknowledge that a repair attempt has failed in writing in the specific language that triggers lemon law protections requires a level of persistence and documentation that most buyers never anticipated when they signed the purchase agreement. And then there's the dismissiveness, the service advisors who tell you the rough shifting you're feeling is normal, the technicians who clear the codes and tell you they couldn't reproduce the problem, the shrug that happens when you describe an electrical gremlin that disappeared the moment you pulled into the service bay, because of course it did. This is a known phenomenon, so common it has its own nickname among technicians, intermittent faults. And intermittent faults are the ones that drive owners the most completely out of their minds. The dealer experience in 2026 isn't designed to help you resolve problems quickly. It's designed to outlast your patience. And for a disturbing number of buyers, it's working exactly as intended. The hidden cost avalanche. You budgeted for the truck payment. You budgeted for the insurance. Maybe you even budgeted for the occasional maintenance cost. What you probably didn't budget for is what modern truck ownership actually costs in 2026. Because there's a whole category of expenses that the sales brochure never mentions and the finance manager in the dealership back office very deliberately glosses over. Let's start with insurance. Full-size truck insurance premiums have increased dramatically over the past 3 years, driven by two factors working in perfect combination to destroy your monthly budget. First, repair costs. The same electronic complexity that makes these trucks difficult to maintain makes them extraordinarily expensive to repair after even minor accidents. A fender bender that would have cost $800 to fix on a 2005 F-150 can run $4,000 to $6,000 on a 2025 model because now you're replacing sensors, cameras, radar modules, and parking assist components that are embedded in every body panel. Insurance companies have noticed. Your premium reflects it. Second factor is theft. Certain truck models are stolen at rates that have genuinely alarmed insurers. When a vehicle becomes a high theft target, premiums for every owner of that model go up, whether their specific truck gets stolen or not. You are paying for the collective theft vulnerability of your vehicle's entire model line. That's not something anybody explains to you at the dealership. Then there are the subscription features, the connected services that your truck now requires to access functions that used to just work automatically. Remote start through the app, subscription. Hotspot access, subscription. Certain safety features. In some configurations, subscription. You bought the hardware, you bought the truck. And then you discovered that some of the things you thought you bought are actually ongoing rental agreements with a monthly fee attached. This is a relatively new development in the truck market, and buyers are furious about it in ways that don't always make it into manufacturer satisfaction surveys, but absolutely make it into return decisions. Add together a truck payment that's averaging over $700 a month at current rates, insurance premiums that have increased significantly, repair bills for problems the warranty is supposed to cover, but the dealer keeps failing to actually fix, and subscription fees for features that should have just been included, and you have a financial situation that a lot of buyers didn't model out before they signed. And when the true monthly cost of ownership becomes clear, returning the truck stops being a drastic option and starts looking like the only rational one. What buyers are fleeing. So where are all these disillusioned truck buyers actually going? Because they're not just returning their trucks and taking the bus, they're going somewhere. And where they're going tells you everything about what went wrong and what the market actually wants. The used truck market for specific proven configurations has gone absolutely wild. We're talking about buyers paying premiums for pre-owned trucks with specific powertrains that have documented reliability histories. A well-maintained Ford F-250 or F-350 with the 7.3-liter Power Stroke diesel from between 2000 and 2007 is not getting cheaper on the used market. It's appreciating. Because buyers know what that engine is, they know what it does, they know a well-maintained example can hit 500,000 miles. There's no mystery. There's no first-generation uncertainty. There's just a proven machine that will work. Similarly, Ram heavy-duty trucks with the Cummins 6.7-liter inline-six are holding their used values in ways that make newer trucks look embarrassing by comparison. The Cummins earned its reputation the hard way, mile by mile, and decade by decade. People trust it in a way they simply cannot yet trust the Hurricane. So they're paying for that trust on the used market rather than gambling their money on a new engine with no track record. The Chevrolet small block V8 in various configurations is experiencing a quiet renaissance among buyers who want simple, proven, repairable technology. These engines are understood. They can be worked on by any competent mechanic anywhere in the country without a proprietary scan tool and a software license. That accessibility has enormous real-world value that gets overlooked in comparison tests, but matters enormously when your truck breaks down 200 miles from the nearest dealer. Some buyers are going even further back. There's a genuine and growing market for trucks from the early 2000s and late 1990s, with low technology footprints and high mechanical simplicity. These are trucks that don't have 150 modules. They have an engine, a transmission, and enough electronics to pass emissions. They're not comfortable by modern standards. They don't have heated seats or wireless phone charging or a surround view camera. But they work. Consistently and predictably, they work. And then there's a segment of buyers who are leaving trucks entirely, at least temporarily, and moving into body-on-frame SUVs built on proven platforms. the Toyota Land Cruiser, the Lexus GX, the Ford Expedition in non-problematic configurations. Not perfect alternatives for every use case, but viable ones for buyers who need reliable daily transportation more than they need maximum towing capacity. The market is telling manufacturers something clear. Buyers want technology when it works. They don't want technology when it makes their vehicles unreliable. And when those two things conflict, reliability wins every single time. What manufacturers need to hear. Here's the hard conversation that nobody in a corporate boardroom wants to have, but somebody has to say out loud. Every manufacturer generating mass returns, lemon law filings, and reliability nightmares in 2026 made the exact same mistake. They optimized for the sale instead of the ownership. They loaded these trucks with features that photograph beautifully in advertisements and impress buyers during a 15-minute test drive, then create years of misery the moment the new truck smell fades. And they did it while charging prices that have absolutely no business being attached to vehicles that can't deliver on their most basic promise. That promise isn't complicated. A pickup truck works. It hauls, it tows, it starts every single morning without drama and goes wherever you point it. Everything else, the giant touchscreens, the driver assistance systems, the connected services, all of it is supplementary. When you sacrifice the fundamental promise, chasing the supplementary features, you've failed the assignment. The buyers returning their trucks right now are making that point loudly, publicly, and expensively. 3 things need to change immediately. First, validation timelines. The Hurricane needed more time. The 2025 Tacoma needed more time. The Power Boost needed more time. Compressed launch schedules to beat competitors to market are producing first-year vehicles that are essentially paid beta tests. That engineering time costs money. It costs far less than lemon law settlements and destroyed reputations. Second, service infrastructure. You cannot engineer vehicles with 150 electronic modules and staff your dealerships with technicians who are learning to diagnose them on customer vehicles in real time. That's not a service department. That's an outrageously expensive training program that the customer funds with their time and their sanity. Third, subscriptions for core features need to stop. When someone spends $60,000 on a truck and discovers remote start requires a monthly fee, you haven't sold them a vehicle. You've sold them a complicated rental agreement with a massive down payment. The engines that became legends didn't earn their reputations at launch events. The Cummins, the 7.3 Power Stroke, the 22R, they earned everything through one thing only. They worked. That's still all truck buyers want. And right now, too many of them aren't getting it. Here's the bottom line. The return wave hitting the truck market right now isn't a consumer problem. It's a manufacturer problem. Buyers didn't suddenly become picky. They spent serious money on serious trucks, and those trucks let them down in serious ways. If you're in the market right now, slow down, do the homework, look at the reliability data, look at the recall history, and ask yourself one question. Would this engine belong on a list of the ones that go 500,000 miles? If the answer is maybe, keep your wallet in your pocket and your options open.